Let's get a bit of football. Elijah just doesn't really smash goals in your face. There's a bit more finesse to it. He scored another banger, and I think that might have been my favorite Elijah Just goal of this recent phase, because the way he moved into his right and then opens up his left to get it inside the left post, and I'm literally trying to open up my left boot and swing it into the corner as I'm sitting here. What a banger from Elijah Just. Another banger. All he does is score bangers, finesse bangers, bombadil bangers. Marko Stamenic, what does he do?
He wins trophies.
That's what he
Wherever
does.
he goes.
And Chris Wood, he wins the golden flag. But he hasn't won it just yet. There is a close race for the most offsides in the Premier League, and Chris Wood is in a three-way battle to win the golden flag. I think that's the most important trophy achievement that Nottingham Forest is chasing right now. But there's another one where they're trying to get into the Champions League or whatever. So what's the story with the golden flag? What's the story with Champions League football for Nottingham Forest? Also spin some yarns on Elijah Just and Marko Stamenic, the Uso.
Well, the golden flag with Chris Wood. He had one offside on the weekend. Jamie Vardy for Leicester City had no offsides. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin for Everton had no offsides, which means that with one round to go, all three of them are on 27 offsides. So if none of them play, I guess, I don't know, they share the... It's not really a title because no one else pays attention to it, but they should, because those are also three good goal scorers. So clearly there's a correlation, particularly with Chris Wood. We've definitely explored that before. Woodsy didn't score this weekend, but Nottingham Forest did win. They won 2-1 against West Ham. Got a little bit slippery there for a moment. He did hit the post with a header in the first half, and could have clinched the game with an assist when he flipped through their fellow Jota near the end, and he didn't score. He had a shot deflected over. So it was a good performance from Woodsy. He was like, a little bit more of a facilitator this time than hovering around trying to score. But that's because Nottingham Forest did the thing that when they're at their best, they do. Scored early, took the lead, and then were able to play from in front, where they like to let the other team have the ball, let them come at them, hit them on the counter-attack. And sometimes that means Chris Wood dropping back and winning defensive headers. Other times it means him still hovering around halfway. You clear the ball to Woodsy. He holds it up. Strength of three men there. No one can take it off him as long as his touch is all right. And then he flips it wide to one of the wingers running off him. That's how he set up that Jota chance near the end. They did concede late against West Ham, so got a little bit frisky there, but they held on for the 2-1 win. Other results weren't great, but Arsenal did beat Newcastle. So what that means is heading into the last round, top 5 gets Champions League. Now that Crystal Palace have pretty sensationally won the FA Cup as well, that helps clear up the European stuff too. So it'll be top 5 gets Champions League, 6th place gets Europa League. Crystal Palace also get Europa League regardless of where they finish. And 7th will be Conference League. And right now Nottingham Forest is 7th, but they're 1 point off 3rd. So it's just one of them like down to the wire things. The golden flag will be a photo finish, and the Champions League spots will be a photo finish. Nottingham Forest plays Chelsea in the last round. So if they don't win that game, it doesn't really matter. They're guaranteed European football either way because they can't finish lower than 7th. But we're talking Champions League here. If they don't beat Chelsea, they won't get Champions League. If they do beat Chelsea, they would need either Everton to win or draw against Newcastle, or they would need Aston Villa to win, to lose, or where are we? They would need Manchester United to win or draw against Aston Villa. Or it would be nice if Manchester City dropped some points. They actually have 2 games to go because of the FA Cup games. They're playing midweek against Bournemouth and on the weekend against Fulham. I have been wondering, tiny little thought in the back of my head, might we see Matt Diaz sneak onto a Fulham bench at some point before the end of the season, since they've got nothing else to play for? Might be a chance to to blood a few youngsters. I suspect that won't happen, but who knows? It's not out of the question that he might pop up and score a sensational goal against Manchester City. There's probably a 1 in 10,000 chance of it happening, but that's better than a 0 chance. So there's 3 other teams that they could potentially catch up if they can beat Chelsea in the final round. They are at home in that one, and they did draw away against Chelsea earlier in the season, back in like October. And you know who scored the goal in the 1-1 draw that day? It was Chris Wood against Chelsea, his first ever goal against Chelsea, actually. So it's not over. They're back in with a little bit of a chance after beating West Ham. It's still the outsider thing, but look, if they don't get Champions League, they still get some other European football, and that in itself will be great for Chris Wood, getting a chance to play some of that stuff. It also will be great for Marko Stamenic and Tyler Bindon and their chances of being able to hang around in the top squad, because the more games you play, the bigger squad you need. And they already kind of got found out a little bit in the last month or so, where a lot of players have played a lot of minutes for Forest this season, and those guys are pretty tired right now, and they're battling through it. And it's maybe why they've slipped up a few results lately. I don't think that's a coincidence, as they have not the shallowest squad overall, but the shallowest squad in terms of the players that the coach actually trusts out of all those teams in the top 7, really. There was a little bit of like, one of the British papers had a thing about Nottingham Forest where they said Tyler Bindon's likely to go out on loan to a championship team, but I've read another one that said that no decision's been made whatsoever. What we know is that Tyler Bindon has said this, Marko Stamenic has said this. They'll both report to preseason training. So at least for the first week or so, they'll be with Forest. They'll, I don't know, do their testing and stuff, and they'll have a chance to make an impression and show that they deserve to stick around. Speaking of Stamenic, didn't get on the field in the Greek Cup final. That was unfortunate. They scored early, but then they didn't get a clinching goal till late, so they obviously weren't going to go messing with their midfield while they're trying to hold on to a 1-0 for most of that match. But he was on the bench and he was available, and he got to partake in some celebrations as Olympiacos made it a League and Cup double, just as Cervena Zvezda won a League and Cup double last season with Marko Stamenic, just as FC Copenhagen won a League and Cup double the year before that with Marko Stamenic. 3 League and Cup doubles, 6 trophies, and 3 consecutive seasons in 3 different countries with 3 different clubs. I know no New Zealander has ever done it before at anything like a comparable level to this. I'd be surprised if too many footballers from any heritage have done that. They've achieved the feat that Marko Stamenic just wrapped up, and he's not going to be playing in Greece next year. So I don't know, maybe he can still make it a 4th. Maybe he'll just get crack into that Nottingham Forest team. There we go. FA Cup, Premier League double. That would maybe be like the greatest individual run of trophies in the history of the sport if that happens. Maybe they'll even add a Champions League title to that as well, make it a treble, who knows. But that's what Marko Stamenic has been doing. Anything on that, or you want a bit of Elijah Just as well?
Well, it would be a fantastic individual achievement for Marko Stamenic, but it would also involve Chris Wood, and it may
and
also
probably Tyler Bindon.
Yeah. So that would be also to be honest, it would just be an amazing moment for Kiwi football. But finish up on Elijah Just.
Yeah, Elijah Just. He doesn't score simple goals, but they kind of are simple for him, because there's a lot. He scored 6 goals this season for St. Pölten in Austria, and they've all been fantastic goals. Some people, Chris Wood will specialize in, he'll score the tap-ins as well. It's a volume game after all. Certainly wouldn't be disappointed if Elijah Just scored a few extra little tap-ins, but that's not his role. He's a winger. He's a creative player. Sometimes he plays through the middle as well for St. Pölten. And he's their 3rd top goal scorer, and he's only played about a 1/3 of the minutes this season because he just pops up with these amazing finishes. I don't know if they got XG in the 2nd division of Austrian football, but if they do, I'm pretty sure he's absolutely shattering that. There's the chop and side and curl it into the top corner goals that he's been scoring. Got a couple of those for the All Whites as well in the same time. There was one where he smashed one into the bottom corner across the goal. There was the dribbling sensation one of last week, where it wasn't the commentator, it was the voiceover and the highlights package that I found of it was like I don't speak, what do they speak in Austrian? I guess they speak German in Austria. So I don't speak German, so I don't know exactly what the commentator was talking about when he was describing the goal, but I definitely heard the words Maradona and England in '86. So he's comparing it to one of the most famous goals ever scored in the sport. I think that's an exaggeration, just quietly, but Elijah Just has maybe been doing that to people and watching him score the goals he's been scoring. Yeah, he wasn't there for the start of the season. He turned up. St. Paulton got quite good after he turned up. He's had a couple injuries, hovering around like either side of that All Whites World Cup qualification final thing. So he's also missed some time. They have one more game this season, so we'll see if he can add to that. If he scores another goal, he'll be their second top scorer for the season, despite playing such a not a minimal amount, because there have been very impactful minutes when he's been around, but he hasn't played as much as he would like to, but he's played enough to make a pretty heavy impact. What is interesting moving forward about this is he is only on loan at St. Paulton. They have an option to buy, so that is a thing that I expect they will pick up. I think they'll keep him around. He's been good enough that I don't see why you wouldn't. But there is an option that maybe if they don't have the finances or something and then they can't afford to, that maybe that option was there because they were banking on getting promoted, and they're probably going to finish third. They've actually won 5 games in a row, so they're finishing really strong. Coincidentally, right as Elijah Justice come back to fitness, they've started winning a bunch of games in a row. So, another little one there. We'll see what the on-off stuff looks like at the end of the season. But he just... He keeps scoring these amazing goals, and he was doing it for the All Whites as well at the same time. So he's definitely one of the most enjoyable players to be watching at the moment, because I don't know, I pop up in those highlights on like a Sunday morning, Monday morning, and see that name Elijah Just on the scoreboard. I know I'm in for something good.
According to footystats.org, this season, which is in the second league, if I'm reading this correctly, per 90, he's on 0.54 goals scored.
Sounds about right. There's 6 goals in like 1,000 something minutes.
0.64 goal involvements. So there you go.
That's including his assists or 2. One assist, 2 assists. I can't remember exactly. But those are massive numbers for someone who's not like those. Actually, those would be massive numbers for a striker. Those are enormous numbers for someone who's not even playing as a striker, who's playing as a creative midfielder.
Beauty. But we got bigger fish to fry here, because we got to talk about Auckland FC, the Blue Riders, and their victory away from home against the Melbourne Victory. Let me read your nice and succinct notes in our newsletter to set you up here. They picked a back 4 formation, getting the best dudes on the park that they could. Max Mata was injured. Neida Moreno is the super sub. They mostly played without the ball, only keeping 40% of possession. But part of that lack of possession was because they countered so fast when they did get it, rather than knocking the ball around to boost up the passing stats. Cough, cough, Wellington Phoenix. Lots of room for Marley Francois in particular when they broke. Didn't do much with it, but was an outlet that could have been fruitful. They targeted set pieces. They defended stoutly and really limited a good attacking Victory side, with Alex Paulson not facing a shot on target. In fact, the Melbourne Victory shot map tells an enthralling tale all on its own, which you can't see, but you can see in our newsletter. That doesn't work
on the podcast as well. But yes, it is in the newsletter.
That's a total of 10 shots by the Victory, and 7 of them were blocked, including the only 3 from within the penalty area. All of which just smells like a quintessential, typical Auckland FC performance, but in their biggest game of the season, away from home in Melbourne. I've got 2 kind of zones that I want to focus on. The defense, and I think Jacob Spoonley mentioned in the commentary, like the layers of the defense. Because the strikers work hard, they're going to get busy doing their defensive work. And if you get past them, then you're running into the Verstrada trap. And Verstrada, he's going to push you off the ball. He's going to take the ball from you, and he's going to make a pass. If you get past him, depending on where you are, you're either dealing with Sakai or Franny de Vries, who are excellent defenders on either side of the field. And usually what happens is you get past the wide player, and then you're channeled into the middle where Dan Hall or Zen Peinecker are waiting for you. They're going to take the ball off you. But somehow, if you get past all those players, which I don't think actually happened in this game against the Victory.
Not in this game, no.
If by a miracle you get past those players, you need to get the ball past Alex Paulson, who is still the best goalkeeper in the A-League. To me, he's the best goalkeeper New Zealand's ever produced. He is an absolute freak. Like I was thinking about it with the Warriors. This is due to the salary cap, due to the nature of professional sports. I don't know how long it's going to last, where you're just watching these youngsters develop together. So it's a moment to savor, because we're watching the Warriors. We're watching Leotawa, Stel Smith, Halasima, Laban, Vaimunga. We're watching all of them together. These are moments to savor for football fans, because you're watching the best goalkeeper I've ever seen from New Zealand and the world, to be honest. Like, he's the best goalkeeper in the world ever. You're watching him play right there. Next week, you're going to watch him at Mount Smart Stadium, the greatest sports stadium in Aotearoa, where I think they can get 30,000 people there. He's awesome. And he made a couple of... there was one save that might have been off a cross, though, where like someone was flinging their boot up right in front of him. He just came forward and punched the ball out of his vicinity. It was a fantastic defensive performance to watch for Auckland FC. We can talk about that, but what's new? Auckland FC, great defensive team. The other thing that was a bit more surprising was the reliance on the young players. And we know, okay, they're probably going to select Marley Francois ahead of Moreno, because Moreno, as you said, he's the super sub. He's going to come on, he's going to finish the game. He almost won the game or scored another goal, hit both posts with his shot. So Marley Francois starting on the left side of the field, but in this game, Jesse Randall's starting as well. And then Gillian comes off the bench. Like, that's a little bit more youngster involvement than I was prepared for. And they still won 1-0 away from home in Melbourne to set up the return leg.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, yeah, Max Mata wasn't available, so they couldn't go by that option. But like, you could have started Jake Brimmer as maybe a number 10 off of, as the season began with him playing in that role behind Guillermo Mai. They went with a different option where Brimmer would, if you pick him, he's a very experienced player. He's played at this level before. He played against the Phoenix at this exact level for the Victory last season. You could have had that, and he would be someone who drops into midfield a little bit more. So that might have boosted your possession stuff a tad. You might have been able to play further up the field. That's not actually the strategy they were trying to play away from home against the Victory. They wanted Jesse Randall because he's a speedster, and behind the lines, he runs in the opposite direction, right? He runs towards the goal. And you got him. You got Marley Francois doing the same thing. You got Logan Rogerson. They didn't really use him a whole lot, although he ended up popping up with the decisive moment with the goal. With an off across that came from the left where he's drifting inwards. But you know, they could have used Rogerson in the same way that they were maybe a little too I don't know, reliant on playing up that left side. I think that's maybe just the way it broke. Maybe that's because the Victory were attacking down that side, and that's where they could counter from. I don't know. That's where the space was left. Who knows? They have to watch a replay with a microscope, and I don't really want to do that to figure out a small point. But they I mean, that's an attacking move, right? Like, it didn't feel like necessarily, like, certainly that was the game built on outstanding, one of their best defensive performances of the whole season, and to do that in that occasion is It's crazy stuff. But then I'm looking at that squad and I'm thinking like Hiroki Sakai won like 9 tackles or something. Like, he just shut down. We're talking about maybe Victory attacking down the other side, probably because Sakai just shut down everything on his edge. Like no one could get past him, let alone get across and to where Pinecker and Hall were both, I thought, fantastic as well. And maybe De Vries was the guy you could target a little bit more on the defensive side of things, but then De Vries obviously more than made up with that by being able to get forward still and whipping in the assist for the winning goal. So, yeah, like amazing stuff there. And Sakai's played at World Cups. He's played in the Champions League of Asia and the Champions League of Europe. So we know how supremely experienced he is. He wasn't going to be faced about an A-League semi-final, but at the same time, like I mentioned, Brimmer's coming off the bench. He's played at this level before just last season. Tommy Smith's coming off the bench. Well, he's interesting thing about Smithy when they won the Premier's play was him talking about how it's the first trophy he's ever won at club football. But he's played a long time for Ipswich Town in the English Championship, and that included playing in like playoff semi-finals. I don't think he made a final. I don't think they ever got to a playoff final, but they certainly played playoff semi-finals. I remember him scoring in one of them once. So he's played in massive games of significant importance there. Even someone like Nando Pinecker is a little younger and maybe hasn't played at a massive level, at club level. Well, he was one of the starters for the All Whites against Costa Rica a few years ago. And we could go through a lot of these guys with similar things. They're not just an experienced team; they're a team that has experience in big games and knows they knew how to handle the situation so well. They were so unfazed, and they just went out there and did the stuff that they've done best, but did it as well as they ever have in such an important game, which is not, I don't know if you'd say that about the Phoenix last season at the same stage. I don't think you could say that they quite matched their season performances when the biggest pressure was on in the same way, but Auckland FC did, where they just this like, oh man, like the swarming, bullying defensive stuff was on such full display. And I noticed as well, I was looking at some of this stuff where it's some of the seasonal stats, because they are the team that commits the most fouls. But I noticed also they're in the bottom half for yellow cards received. So they foul the most, but they don't actually get anywhere near the most yellow cards. And I thought that was an interesting telling note as well, because you think about what kind of fouls get called for yellow cards. Often it's like it's cynical stuff, it's time wasting stuff, and it's also like dirty stuff, lunging tackles and whatever. Well, you don't actually see a lot of that from Auckland. They foul a lot, but they're not dirty fouls. And it's also late fouls. Chop down an attacker who was through, who had beaten you the first time, and you trip him up so he can't go any further. Well, they don't do that either, because to do that, you've got to get beaten in the first place. And Auckland FC don't, because they enforce their physicality on the opponents in like a proactive way, if that makes sense. Like they get there first. Verstrada will shove you over, but he's not shoving you over after you've beaten him. He's just getting to the ball first and shrugging you off. They impose themselves so well, and they did that brilliantly against the Victory, who frankly I didn't know how the Victory were going to break them down, and I don't think the Victory did either. Because you see some of the stuff that like Azani was having a little bit of a whinge in the post-match interview about it all. And like you didn't have an answer, mate. Like you didn't have a clue. But of course, they also managed to pop up and score a pretty decisive goal. I think even a 0-0 draw with that performance, I would have felt like that's Auckland FC stomping down on the tie and taking control. But to be able to take a lead to Mount Smart Stadium, even more so. Like this is exactly where they wanted to have them after that away leg.
You mentioned having Marley Francois, Jesse Randall, and Logan Rogerson, and the energy for an attacking sense. I thought
speed as well, yeah.
The speed, then it's a strategy for away, because they're going to concede possession, and the space will be in behind moving forward. What do we mean by that? Melbourne Victory are further up the field. So there's space behind their defenders for the fast guys of Auckland FC to get in. All of that is true. But I also think if you're as defensively excellent as Auckland FC is, and you have such clear focus and intention defensively, I know this to be true for Marley Francois and Logan Rogerson because we've talked about it this season, but their defensive work is highly valuable as well as their speed going forward. And maybe having the vibrant youth of Jesse Randall was also a defensive thing where he's just running around. Just run around, work hard. Use your speed and energy to put pressure on players without the ball, because the moment you put pressure on them, they're passing into the cul-de-sac where the bullies are. Think of it like a neighborhood, or maybe a little tough neighborhood. A couple of gang members are down in the cul-de-sac. You push them into the cul-de-sac, Louis Verstraeta's there. He won't have his gang patch on because that's illegal, but he's there to take your stuff from you. And I think, yes, that is a good attacking move to have that pace and energy, but it's also a good defensive move to have that pace and energy because you're so well drilled and so your players are so classy defensively that you just buzz around up top, force the ball to go forward, bang, your lads are there right waiting for the ball. And just a couple of stats here. Now, obviously, Auckland FC, they're playing extra games than a lot of other teams. Cough, cough, Wellington Phoenix, but I don't want to go too hard on that. Like, shout out to the Wellington Phoenix. We appreciate you. But the clean sheets, Alex Paulson, 13, most in the A-League. Shots saved, not shots fired at the Wellington Phoenix, but shots saved. Oluwayemi is the leader on 84. Now, that was a shot at the Wellington Phoenix because their goalkeeper's making the most saves. But Alex Paulson is tied for 6th on save shots on 73. So Alex Paulson has the most clean sheets, but he doesn't have the most save shots. That is summed up in that Wellington Phoenix win over the Melbourne Victory, because he doesn't have to make as many saves as other goalkeepers because the defense is so good, but he can make the saves. He is an excellent goalkeeper doing that job.
Well, he did it last year for the Wellington Phoenix. He was making the most saves because that's how they defended, is they let teams shoot a lot. Whereas Auckland FC, they close you down in the midfield, so they don't allow those shots. So very different approaches. And the fact that he's also been the best goalkeeper in both of those seasons is kind of, it's another feather in his cap as well, isn't it? He's done it for two very contrasting styles of defense. Although there are some underlying consistencies, like Nando Peinecker and Finn Sermon just blocking everything that comes near them is a pretty consistent one.
Alex Paulson is also first for completed long passes. So Paulson has the most clean sheets and the most completed long passes. That just seems good. That just seems useful. The completed crosses, Franny de Vries is the only player in the A-League with over 170. And he's got 206. So that's Franny de Vries in a nutshell. But also Franny de Vries and Auckland FC in a nutshell. Auckland FC don't have a player with 10 goals, which is great because everyone scores goals. And they only need to score a few goals to win the game, 1 goal to win the game because they don't concede any goals. So they don't have a player. So there's 9 players in the A-League who have scored 10 goals. But Franny de Vries has 8 goal assists. And he is 6th, tied for 5th for the most goal assists. So de Vries has 8 goal assists, but Auckland FC don't have a player with 10 goals. So it would be better if de Vries had like 10 goal assists, and then I could say he's got 10 goal assists, but the Auckland don't have a player with 10 goals. I can't say that, but I can say There's a wide mix of players scoring the goals for Auckland FC, but there's also a wide, not a wide mix. There's a few different players getting on the end of Franny de Vries's crosses. So it's not like de Vries is always crossing to Chris Wood, or he can't, because he's got Mai there, who is half the size of Chris Wood. But whether it's Mai, whether it's Mata, whether it's Logan Rogerson, whoever else, there's a variety of players on the end of Franny de Vries's crosses. He's also third for the most chances created in the A-League, 56.
Where does Hiroki Sakai rank on those? Have you got him on the list?
He's not top 10, so that's all we got here is top 10s.
He's not top 10.
But
because he's the second most. I know he's second for assists for the Phoenix. I think he's 5 or 6 or something like that. The two leading assist makers are their fullbacks. We talk about what a great defensive team they are, but also their defense is contributing so much of their attack.
How do you feel just coming back to Mount Smart? Big weekend at Mount Smart, obviously, because the Warriors are playing the Raiders on Sunday. And Auckland FC, when is that game? That is Saturday 6 p.m. I do think they're going to be... Oh, I reckon they can get 30,000 people in there for this game. It's going to be massive. You kind of don't want the... You need to be ruthless in this game is the best way to say it. You do have the 1-0 advantage. Clarified there's no away goal situation, so they don't have like a 10-goal advantage with their away goal. But you do need to be ruthless even though you're 1-0 up. Because obviously Victory have nothing to lose. Based on that performance, just what are you feeling? What's your gut vibe, your intuition about Auckland FC returning to Mount Smart to play the Victory on Saturday?
Well, it will be jam-packed. They've added extra seats. I know that. I don't know what the number they've managed to get up to. Whatever, as much as health and safety will allow you to. Whatever
30,
it is, 000. It's going to feel like
30,000. I'm saying 30,000.
I don't think it's that high, but whatever it is, it's going to feel like 100,000 because they're all going to be Auckland fans. And yeah, I mean, you just if they score early, they'll have it exactly where they want it. Even if they don't, like, they haven't conceded a goal now in 270 minutes against Melbourne Victory this season, so they like playing against these opponents. And if they do what is hoped of them and win this, Mount Smart will also be hosting a grand final the following week, you know. So, and that'll at the moment probably be against Melbourne City. They might have had a better chance against Manchester City. I don't know. Crystal Palace turned them up. So, Melbourne City won 3-0 away in their away leg to Western United. Western United are the team that's beaten Auckland FC twice this season. Against Melbourne City, they've had a draw and a win. So I think that also is shaping up for something for what would be the preferable outcome for the final if that comes to pass. That would be easily the two best defensive teams in the competition, Melbourne City and Auckland FC. And Auckland FC just got to use that defensive prowess to prove it against Melbourne Victory on the weekend, because if they keep another one of those clean sheets, as they've done 3 times in a row against this team, they will be in the grand final whether they score or not.